Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another review, and this week we're looking at a remake of a classic, and dare I say it, a remake that's actually good. Uh, the Not The Evil Dead, it's Evil Dead. Actually, in some ways, I guess it's some kind of going, it might not be an actual remake, because there's that distinction between the fact that this movie doesn't have "the" in the title, and the original series has "The Evil Dead," and this is just Evil Dead. I guess that's what they're going with. It's kind of weird that they do that, but hey, it could work. That works. This is a movie I've been looking forward for a while, because The Evil Dead, or more, I should more accurately say, The Evil Dead 2 was one of those horror movies that one of those first really hard horror movies I got to see as a kid. Well, not. It was probably my parents were kind of strict for a while, and that has changed now. But growing up, they were very strict with us about what we could watch. So it wasn't until I was in middle school till I could. Yeah, my birthday's in October, so they finally basically let the reins off, and for my birthday we kind of rented a ton of horror movies, made like an all night horror movie marathon. Evil Dead 2 was one of those, and that was like the one I was like, oh my god, this movie's amazing. And it wasn't until then that I realized that another movie that I had I don't know how this got past my parents, but Army of Darkness was one of those movies that we had watched and been watching for years before. But it was, of course, the TV cut. I think it was on Sci-Fi or one of those shows. Might have been TNT. And we would watch that for a while. I think we recorded it off of TV, and me and my brothers loved that movie for years. So I guess the TV cut. It's kind of weird how the Army of Darkness is so different from the other two movies that it really does feel like its own standalone. But anyway, so I've been a fan of The Evil Dead, and I was looking forward to this remake, and I actually early on was actually supportive of the fact that they made the Ash character a female. In this case, really played by there was some, I think, confusion over who actually was the new quote-unquote Ash. Jane Levy's basically, her character Mia is basically Ash. She's not called Ash, and actually that was my only problem with that. Not the fact that they made it a female Ash, but that they changed her name. I'm like, Ash, name her Ashley Williams, and her nickname is Ash. Like, what's the problem with that? I was hoping that the reason that they kept the name different was that Bruce Campbell was going to make an appearance, or like a cameo appearance maybe at the end, and be like, oh, okay, cause that's why I was hoping at some point he would show up and it'd be like, oh, they didn't name her Ash because Ash is actually here and around. Now, there's been some rumors that they're going to make an Evil Dead 4 separate from this, and that they'll actually connect the two canons, or this film with that one. So maybe we might still get that. But if they had done that in the movie, I would have forgiven the fact that they didn't call her Ash, and instead call her Mia. The other person that I think a lot of people saw, at least early on, that Elizabeth Blackmore, who plays Natalie in the movie, was going to be Ash, or the Ash character. Not so. But let me get back to my point with the name. Yeah, I still don't get why they didn't call her Ash. Just name her Ash, Ashley Williams. It makes actually more sense for a female to me have her name as Ash than it does for a male, really. So there's that, and I was kind of disappointed. But maybe they are planning, if they do an Evil Dead 4, that they'll connect the two, and then therefore I'll forgive it. Okay, Mia can be Mia because she is not. Actually, now that I think about it, they never gave a last name, so maybe she's Mia Williams. I'm unofficially going to call her that. and say like this is like she's a niece of Ash Williams. Alright, I'm making that official in my head, which means it's kind of unofficial. um, but overall, I did like her performance, and in fact, yeah, I really got to talk about this right out the bat. In all these movies, it's cliche about kids going out into the woods, and in reality, who would go out to a small, shitty cabin out in the middle of the woods for party? That sounds like a horrible ideal. I mean, really, who is going to do that? Like, maybe, okay, camping trip, but it's such a hard, flimsy excuse. Not too many people actually do it, and when they do it, it's really not, out in the middle of nowhere woods. And if they are serious enough to go out that deep into the woods, they normally aren't hauling around a bunch of keggers. If you're going out to like drink in the woods, it's normally at a campground, not too far from civilization. But this movie, oh yeah, the other excuse sometimes is that they inherit the cabin, so they got to go out to check it out. It's a little bit better. It still doesn't explain. Normally it does devolve into a party because we'll just bring all of our friends. This one, though, it makes actually probably the best excuse I've seen as to why you're going to get a group of somewhat youngish. They're actually in their post-college years. One of the guys is outright said is he's a high school teacher now. Like it's probably probably only been teaching like a year or two. So we're looking at people that are only a couple years out of college to write in college. So it's slightly older demographic than your standard horror movie villains. Although I think Mia's supposed to be a couple years younger. I think she's still in school or at that age. Not high school, but college. But anyway, the excuses. Mia is actually a drug addict. She, smokes the dope, and she wants to quit, and therefore they're gonna go cold turkey, and they're taking her out to this cabin out in the middle of the woods, which is their family's cabin, which they haven't been to for years, to have her go cold turkey. And this actually is a really good excuse for a believable excuse to why these characters would do this. Why would they go out in the middle of the woods in a really creepy old cabin? It's the family owns the cabin. It's really, really far away from anything. I don't know if I would call that peaceful, how it's all set up, but apparently Mia, this was their parents' cabin and stuff. They used to spend summers and stuff out here, so it's a familiar territory. It's really a good spot altogether for someone to go, the cold turkey and go through withdrawal. And it works wonderfully as a plot device because we don't it gives everyone the proper motivation for being there. And you have all these other characters who, everybody kind of knows each other, but since they're not going out there for being celebration, they kind of had an excuse why they're kind of all farting around the cabin. It's not exactly a fun trip. They're there to lend emotional support for Mia, who's of course going to become a bit of an asshole as she goes through withdrawal, which I'll get into that in a second. The other great part for this, but it was an excuse a bit why they're kind of just hanging out at the cabin, not doing much, and that you're not out there, to party or anything, so you're kind of just chilling out at the cabin, not doing much. So of course you're gonna sit down and read the fucking Necronomicon. The other useful thing for having her have this is, as shit starts to happen, it happens to Mia first, and it happens right as she's like at that point where she's hitting withdrawal bad, and she's really crashing. So it gives a good excuse why the characters don't recognize what's going on at first, because the person telling you is the person that's kind of showing signs of possession a bit and is getting freaked out is the person that is supposed to be kind of showing freaky signs of stuff and getting freaked out. She's going through withdrawal. She's having the twitches. She's emotionally withdrawn. She's her mind's getting all messed up. She's at that point where she might say anything to get out of there. So it gives the other characters an excuse for why they're like ignoring stuff. Because in this case, they're not really ignoring it. They have a really plausible explanation. Um, she's acting weird. Of course, she's acting weird. She's just giving up drugs. Her mind is getting messed up. And to their credit, once like stuff really obviously is starting to get a little crazy, they kind of quickly jump on this shit is probably like demonic or voodoo. They don't like stay skeptical for that long. Like once some really really weird stuff is happening, like the one guy that actually read the book, Eric, he kind of very quickly he's like, maybe this shit is my fault. Actually, never kind of takes the blame for it. He never kind of goes, sorry guys, it's all my fault. Which, by the way, we have to talk about that guy real quick. He gets all the punishment Ash should have gotten. He just gets the shit knocked out. I mean, I guess this is someone, and this is the audience I went to see this with was great, by the way. Great for me in that both they were laughing along at parts that you could laugh at. But, I'll save this for this in a second. But, anyway, he is just constantly, he gets stabbed by his friend, maybe girlfriend. She stabs him and forces him to actually have to beat her to death, like smash her skull with a piece of toilet that broke off. And like before that, she was like fucking stabbing him with a syringe too. And he had a syringe, like this needle broke off right underneath his eyeball. Then he gets shot up later on with a nail gun, like a lot. He gets he gets hit the shit kicked out of him with a crowbar. He gets a lot of stuff happen to him. He takes a lot of punishment. But even like some of the audience goes, well, serves you right, asshole, for reading the book. And kind of going, yeah. I mean, he's taking the punishment at the same time. It's like, yeah, you were the guy that caused all this. Because it even says, like, right in the book, like, it says, do not read his name. Do not write the name or speak it. And to the point where the whoever wrote within the Necronomicon, like, it's in English, as in, like, somebody was like, I am going to give zero excuse fucking warning for the book. Like, not only did they wrap this thing in, like, garbage bags, and then wrap the garbage bag in fucking barbed wire, but within the book, they actually wrote in plain English on, like, red pen, like, do not read this shit. Do not read this. Do not speak the name aloud. Do not write these words. And they even went even further to actually, they took like a marker and like tried to erase the spots where it actually said like what the words were supposed to be. And of course, this asshole's like determined to find out exactly what they're saying him not to say. So he uses the old scribble trip. You put another piece of paper on top of a piece of paper, and you lightly draw on top of it there, and it'll show the indentations. Will show the markings. And he reads it because apparently this guy can just read ancient Sumerian. Although I kind of like this. They actually do some smart things too. Since I'm talking about him, like kind of after like they lock Mia in the basement after that whole scene, he actually outright just tries to burn the book. He's like, okay, the book is evil. I'm just gonna light it on fire. And of course, they add a new thing to the Necronomicon. You actually cannot burn the book. Like, he lights this thing, he throws it on fire, and it's fine. He's just staring at it. Like, he just stares at the book, and it's like the fire is going, but it doesn't even touch the damn thing. Which, by the way, the design of the Necronomicon, I do like I wish they went with the original look with the evil, like with that face in there. They do make it still looks like it's flesh colored, but they don't explain the Necronomicon in this one like they explained it in the original. I wish they had at some point like found some sort of like they had any recordings or notes or something that said, "Hey, this is a Necronomicon." Also, by the way, if you're wondering, there is a bit of an part where it's not really explained why this shit happened in this cabin. In the beginning, the movie starts off with some girl running in the woods and a bunch of rednecks grab her, and it turns out it's her father, who it might be he looks kind of like professor like, so he might be a professor. So that element might be there, but it's just not told. Apparently they take her into this cabin. I guess it was the nearest one by, but the rednecks have set this all up, and they basically sacrifice her by burning her alive in the basement. And I guess instead of taking the Book of Ultimate Evil with them, they leave it in this random cabin who they don't know who the owner is. And they just leave it in this guy's basement. Like, no explanation. Again, maybe there's a deleted scene where they kind of make it clear, like, oh, this stuff just happened a couple days ago, and these guys were supposed to come back this weekend or something to get the rest of this stuff, but the floods came, and that's the other thing they do smart, is they actually rather quickly like decide we're getting out of here. Like, it's this guy is, she's hurt. They try driving, and this is kind of before everything's gone real nuts. But it's been raining for a while now within the movie, and of course the roads are flooded out, so they can't get out. It's going to take after the rain stops, it's going to take a couple hours for them. Which, by the way, the whole rain plot, they establish early on in the film, like, they have to drive over part of a river to get to this cabin. Well, here's the thing. That shot's probably the worst CG shot. They apparently could. I don't know if this was a really late pickup shot where they realized they needed to establish that they kind of have one of those roads that go through a light stream. But they couldn't film an actual Jeep driving over this. They couldn't find that anywhere, apparently. So they did a CG shot. It looks really bad. They had to CG the Jeep. Sad, so sad. That's probably the worst use of CGI, but it's like, because it's so unnecessary. There is some CGI, but overall, there's actually a lot of practical effects here. And that was really, and it added so much to this movie, the fact that there was practical effects. Because when, like, you saw people's tongues getting cut and all this stuff, it feels so much better. The tree scene still had a good amount of CGI in it, more than I wanted, but it wasn't that bad. Like, I've seen worse use of CGI, but speaking of the tree scene kind of let me know what type of audience I was with, in that the audience I saw this with, and this is what I mean when I say it was really especially good for me, you could tell that these were this is a generation that grew up on the PG-13 horror movie, or the movies that are R, but they really never go into the gore and this outright what shit that, if you've seen the classic 80s movies, and I'm not talking about just, if you've seen the hardcore horror that was around in the 80s, coming out of Europe, like, when that tree went up into her lady parts, which they did do that, I was surprised. You could just, the audience was just like, what the fuck? I'm like, if you guys are freaking out from that, I got a movie at home where a rat goes in the bottom end of a female and eats his way out. Comes out her mouth. Bruno Mattei. Gotta love him. So you quickly, you could tell throughout this movie, like, when they were starting to see this practical stuff, this audience was not prepared to that. They were not used to that. And I hope they like are appreciating this and thinking this is like probably like, oh my god, this is the hardest hard movie I've ever seen. In reality, it's not, but I had still enjoyed it. It was still a good practical effects movie, but I was just kind of it. It was nice to see it with an audience that really was just like, holy crap! Like, good, you guys, yeah, have finally gotten some balls here. Congratulations. This is what an actual horror movie's like. Let's see, who else? Actually, for a little while, I actually thought that Shiloh Ferdinand was going to be the actual Ash. She's actually got to wear an outfit very similar to Ash, and I had a feeling maybe they were actually playing with that to the audience, like going, yeah, maybe we told you it was a female, but it's really this guy. But because, yeah, I know in Evil Dead 2, Ash goes bad for a while, and the characters switch. In this one, Mia gets possessed really early on, and she's it's not till near the. This is getting into spoiler territory, but it's not getting till like the end to where she really beats the obsession and the possession. At least they don't do what people do kind of criticize. If they make a criticism of Evil Dead 2, it's the Ash destroys his possession for this love, and then apparently really quickly forgets about it and doesn't really care about it. In this, they actually purify. They establish in Necrocom that there's a couple of ways you can purify the body and the soul, and they all kind of involve killing whoever's possessed. And with like one's fire, one's dismember, and the third is burying somebody alive. And the character David, who's the brother of Mia, decides he thinks he's figured out a way to cheat this. In that he's going to bury her alive, and then he's going to he rigs up with a battery and like the fucking syringes, basically a defibrillator. He's got the idea of, I bury her, she's dead, it's officially killed her all, her soul's been purified or whatever. And since I know a way around this because we're in modern times, I'm gonna shock her and try to bring her back. And this is how they beat the obsession. It works because it follows the actual rules, and this goes, well, Mr. Demon, when you establish your little shape, you didn't think of people with defibrillators. Haha. So it's nice. It's a good little way of actually showing characters being smart. And the audience kind of going along with them, going, oh, okay, I can buy this. They actually had to die, but, we can kind of get around that nowadays. And that really brings a feel, actually, when he's building and setting up this thing. It really does feel like the old school Evil Dead when he does this. So it's appropriate to the film. So, let's see. Really good practical effects. Really good horror. It's got some really good tense moments in it. A smart script. Like, again, I love the establishment of why they're out there. And they use that to good effect in that way. As she's freaking out, she's starting to see some stuff. At one point, she basically just gets out, steals one of the cars, crashes it, and this is what leads to that scene. But right there, okay, we've established how they got rid of one of the cars. So there's less of a chance of escape. It gives us a good excuse to why the characters won't trust Mia, because she's obviously going through really severe withdrawal syndrome. And there's just a lot of moments where you're like, oh! Like, Red Band trailer, I think everyone that waiting in line to see this movie, people apparently got sold just on that Red Band trailer where it showed her slitting her throat. That ain't nothing, man. When Natalie cuts her arm off, which they hinted at that in the trailer, they didn't show the whole fucking scene. That's like, that's nasty. I feel much better now. Last of it comes off. When they get shot up with the nails, and they're pulling out the nail gun. Like, you see this nail gun earlier on, you're like, oh no, you're gonna use that, aren't you? Yeah, you are. Oh, when what's his face? When Eric is getting fucking beat the shit out of by his possessed girlfriend. Like when she gets her that syringe and stabbing, it like looks brutal. And then he's got the fucking syringe stuck in his right in his eyeball. He's got to pull this out, and you're just like, oh, ow. They even have a moment that's like from what's its face? The Raid, where finally the final possession demon kind of comes out and fighting Mia, and Mia's like stuck between a wall, and it has a machete, and it's like shoving the machete through the wall, and it cuts, it goes right through the wall, and this goes, good chunk into her leg, and it slowly pulls it back out, cutting into her. It's like, oh, ow, dude, it's gotta hurt. Scenes like that, it's just great. It's awesome. I highly recommend seeing this. If you're an Evil Dead fan, you probably have already decided to go and see it. If you're worried about it's not. I mean, the remakes, the original's not perfect, and let's face it, the original, they couldn't really finish the whole story, which is why they came up with Evil Dead 2 to actually. Technically, Evil Dead 2 is a remake plus a sequel. So I enjoyed it. It's good. Again, my only real complaint was that they didn't name the main character Ashley. I mean, maybe the point of that was like the original idea was so the people going in were going to be surprised that it was the female that made it through and that she was new Ash. Maybe that was the original idea, but they kind of early on established that. Oh, by the way, the new main character's female. Like, that's still the only hiccup I have. But again, if they ever decide, if they make Evil Dead 4, like, hopefully this is really, really successful, and they'll get really strong backing to make an Evil Dead 4, they'll decide to have these two cross paths. And then it'll be like, okay, well, she can't be Ash, because Ash is Ash. At least that's what I'm hoping for. As for this director, it's they purposely went for a new up-and-comer because Evil Dead helped establish Sam Raimi, and he wants it to be the same thing. And this guy certainly did his work. He's got a great eye for the creepy. Like the first shot after that little opening scene is the woods, but it's shot upside down, so it just looks weird and creepy as we start off. So there's like little moments like that where it's good, and like I said, it's a very smart movie. The film lends itself to a very practical way of believing, like the setup, instead of falling into the cliches. Like I said, the whole thing with them going out there for her to go through withdrawal is really the anti-trope. It averts the trope of people going out into the woods because now they have actually got a really good excuse. The only other excuse I've ever thought of that they never really use in ironically enough in these horror movies is that there are a bunch of college students that are going out in the woods because they're biology majors and they need to take samples for their thesis, or they're environmental scientists, that's what their major is, and so they got a research project. Like, that's the only other really excuse I've ever thought of. They get a bunch of college young kids out into the woods, into a creepy cabin, is actually doing research. I wouldn't have thought the withdrawal one, but it works really well. Oh, and before we end this, I really got to mention of the... of course, there's a ton of callbacks to the original. Some outright in the script, the arm cutting, the losing of the arms, which, by the way, I think they did a really good job with that, because Natalie cuts her arm off, and then after we kind of realize she's not going to be the main character, you kind of were going, oh, well, that was the famous arm cutting scene from the original. And then later on with Mia, when she gets her arm, she doesn't cut it off, she pulls it off because it's stuck. I don't think the actual human body works that way, but this demon flips a Jeep onto her arm, and this is her moment where she's like, I've had enough of this shit. And she literally just keeps on pulling on the arm, this broken arm, until this rips off so she can go get the chainsaw. Which, by the way, when she kills this fucking demon, because it's kind of weird how this demon is, because it's kind of like a possessed version of her that she has to fight. She finally gets this chainsaw, and it's like, she's like, I'm gonna eat your soul, and she has, of course, says, eat this motherfucker, and she shoves the chainsaw. Can't speak today. I'm really tired. It's really late. I saw a really late showing after working 2 jobs. So she shoves this chainsaw right in this thing's face, and just like cuts it straight in half, and like brutal too. Like she's just going up and down on this fucker. And the way they shoot it, it's great too, because it's raining blood, mind you. Not that it's like there's so much blood, it's like it's raining blood. No, I mean literally when this demon is born, it starts to rain blood. like the entire thunderstorm is a thunderstorm of blood. So, but there's like big callbacks. Like they do a good job of faking that out, because you weren't then at that point expecting the arm to come off, because you felt like they already did that scene. And then they do it, and then there's more subtle callbacks to the original. Like they have a what is it? Like the car from the first movies. Like there's, I'm not sure if it's the car, but it's one like it. It's like stuck out in the back of this cabin. It's old, rusted. It's kind of sitting there. It probably doesn't. It obviously doesn't work. There's probably not even an engine in this thing. But it's just sitting there in the back, and you're like, oh. I mean, you buy it. If you ever go into like really rural areas, there's just like random cars that have just died sitting on people's lawns. So you don't question that being there. So once again, I highly recommend seeing this. It's a great horror movie. It's worthy enough to be in the overall canon. It's not as funny. It doesn't have the same humor. That might be the one downside, is it does not have the same humor as the original. But it's fun. It's a fun horror movie, and there is some humor to be found in it. So I recommend it. Go check it out. Not sure what next movie I'm going to be. Possibly, actually, who knows? I might go see Jurassic Park 3D just for the hell of it. I don't know. That's it for now, guys. Signing off. Please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Share. Hasta luego.